I don't know that I need to do a name change. I really am not one that actually buys into that. I look at it that yeah, you can, um, but you got to. I think it's more about declaring who you are, not whether or not you change your name.
I found some documents today that I'm going through to verify whether or not, but it said part of the name change process that everybody's leaving out and how it connects with the authenticated birth certificate is in the name change process. You actually redeem the birth certificate back to the United States of America.
Yeah, you render unto Caesar that which is Caesar's, and unto God that which is God's.
And when you do that during probate and superior court for the name change, it's going to open up the trust account for you to use as the registered agent.
Well, I think you're already the registered agent. I think what you're talking about is it gets you access to be more than the registered agent. That gets you into the private banking and stuff like that.
Right. That's well, I've got it's a 13-page document. I'm going to go through and check and research all their things they've got on here to verify, because you know me, I don't just jump in. I'm going to verify what's said.
Yeah, I mean, hey, I liked it when you had that conversation with that nurse. I mean, that's kind of like my dad. My dad has conversations with people in their homes when he does installation. And I can tell you now, you will never know if you don't talk to these people who will actually tell you the truth. And don't be afraid. Talk to them. Pull them to the side.
That's my motto. I'm going to go to the source and talk to people.
Well, my dad, the first time he talked to someone, when I started teaching my dad about all this, he said, "You ain't gonna believe what I was told today." I said, "What?" He said, "I done a job for this retired banker." And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "Yeah, I was telling him about the secured party process, about the birth certificate." And he said, "The banker, he knew it all. He knew about the what the birth certificate was, the whole 9 yards. But his wife worked in securities and she didn't know any of it. She's just been hearing rumors and getting to where she's researching it. And I found it interesting that he didn't tell her any of it. In other words, you're in the banking system, you know it, but you didn't tell your wife. That made no sense to me. I mean, I don't get
Yeah,
it right, but I still try to tell my wife everything. I don't
right. I mean,
always
that
tell her.
that takes it to a whole new level of the non-disclosure. I think the wife and your immediate right there should know.
Yeah, I mean, my dad has had conversations with some very interesting people that know. Some know little, some know a lot, some don't know anything. So you never know who you're going to run across that might know something. Even Shane has been telling me about some of his conversations where he's finding out that to be the case.
Yeah, people don't talk to others anymore as much as they should when they need information. I think it's lost because they're either afraid of what the answer is going to be, or I don't know the reason.
Well, part of it is look at what they've done to the community. They've destroyed the community. You don't know your neighbors. Back in the day, what happened? The ladies would take a cake or a dish over to the new neighbor and meet their neighbors, and everybody would become friends, and the community was tight. People would talk. But nowadays, you don't talk to people because you're worried somebody's going to stab you in the back, or who are they? What they might be a creep. They might be this, which may be true, but that's another reason. Get to know your neighbors. Because if you got a strong community, it's going to benefit everybody I mean, in the long run. I mean, look at our families. I mean, that's one thing me and my wife discuss is how my family, for example, it's fractured. You got some family members that really don't talk very much, each other much. Used to before on my mom's side when my granny was alive, it was every Christmas and every Thanksgiving, the whole family was at grandma's having Thanksgiving and Christmas dinner. Grandma passed away. It don't happen like that no more.
Yeah, I never understood that. That's the same way it was in my family. When my grandma was alive, we would have big family get togethers every Sunday. Whether you liked your family or not, they were there.
Yep,
And
everybody got along, and everybody did. Those two holidays. Now it's nothing.
yeah, it's
Yeah,
crazy.
it's like when that generation died off, things changed. I mean, I'm waiting to see my last grandmother, what's going to happen when she passes. But I'm still thinking she should change her name.
That's because family doesn't mean what it used to anymore.
That's
Well,
right.
that's what we got to start bringing back because, I miss those days. I miss seeing all of my family at my grandparents' house, and I'd have my drunk Aunt Eddie that would pass around little bottles of vodka to kids, and everybody else would go around getting them from the kids. I mean, that was family. That was stories.
Yeah. I mean, that is part of what's got us in the shape we're in. But I hate to say it, the Bible told us it was going to be this way. I don't necessarily hate to say it. That don't sound right. Just the Bible did warn us. So I don't know if he's going to be able to get on here because I shared the link so he could find it, but he's not here. So we can talk about other things.
Well, I've kind of done things backwards than what everybody has said. I did get my phone call back from the private side bank today because they were supposed to call me. I got a call back from Bank of America private bank, and they were trying to talk me into coming up there for a meeting. And I told them I'd already started the process with Synovus, but then we were talking, and there's a difference between here in America. I didn't know that. There's a difference between private bank and private wealth banking accounts. So whenever anybody gets to that process, you got to make sure which one you're doing because the private wealth accounts don't do the depository and a few other things that the actual private banks do. So they've
Look,
got me switched over now, but
I can tell you this, and I made this discovery kind of by accident. I did the secured party creditor process in 2020. Okay. And that was before I know what I know today, because if I'd have waited till now, I probably would have done that process differently. I still believe in it, but I would have handled it differently. Okay. And I waited for a while and I decided, you know what? This whole thing on the CUSIP numbers, it is hard to get them. I said, you can't go through Fidelity. These people out there teaching the Fidelity stuff, um, they they're not right. They're not accurate. And the reason why is you got to look at it from a objective eye. What can you prove if you happen to find a CUSIP? Can you prove it's attached to your trust? No, you don't see the name. The only way to really get it is going through an investment broker. Okay. So, me knowing that, I called the investment side of my bank and I'm talking to this guy. I said, yeah, I've got this bond here and I've lost my CUSIP number. And I recorded this phone call. It was beautiful. I recorded it and he's like, and I'm telling him about it. He said, I can't really help you. He said, but I know somebody that can. I said, oh, and he forwards me to this guy. And the guy answered the phone. And the first question out of his mouth is, how did you get me? And I told him the story. And I said, can you help? He said, I gave him my social. And I think he saw things just based on the conversation that he would not divulge. And at the end of our conversation, he said, look, I'll tell you this. He said, you seem like a great guy, but this is all I'm going to tell you. Take the bond to your bank and have them deposit it. I said, well, isn't that interesting? It says right there on it, demand deposit.
Well, that's pretty much what they told me. The private side of the banking system, they don't give out the information. You're invited into it. And
Yeah,
I was, like I said, I jump guns on things, but that's because I'm trying to get to that point so I can help my father with chemo. So, I mean, he's down to 105 pounds now from, a 6-foot man that was right at 200. But they actually, if you go to the private wealth side, like I did at first, depending on how you answer questions and how you talk to people, you can get to that private side without having the invite because they'll move you over to it.
yeah. And what I was told is that you have to get an invite to the back office, is what it was called.
Yes, exactly.
I like that. I got freaking scolded in the other group. You can't recruit from this channel. That's highly inappropriate. Really? Like, holy crap, people want to talk to me. I told them how to follow me.
Because you posted the link to where to go to get back on?
Yeah. I love these freaking groups that are so, how do you call it? In a roundabout way, it's an ego. It's like, I thought we're supposed to be sharing knowledge. Should it matter where you get it from? As long as it can be proven accurate? It's just funny.
Well,
That's
they
why I
keep it
said,
locked down secure. I mean, just like the private banks and getting out into the private instead of in the public. All of it's kept locked down instead of helping people out. So, I mean, this isn't just for getting your citizenship status and everything corrected. I mean, in the end result's going to be that you're helping decrease the national debt and everything else. I mean, it's a much bigger thing than what people are thinking.
that's exactly right. That's the reason why I created my group, because I kept finding in all these one process groups, you don't talk about other stuff. But I told them, I said, look, I haven't forgotten where I came from. I started in this in a court case that I fought for 7 years. I knew nothing. And you've got people coming into this new every day, listening to David Straight, listening to the wrong people, and they have questions. And you're teaching them a process that they don't even understand the why it's supposed to work, so they can even defend it. So I said, you know what? I'm going to start my own group. If people have questions, bring the questions. If I don't have the answer, we will find the answer.
I agree with you. That's the one thing that, I mean, you helped me out in the very beginning just by giving me information that I could go and research and learn on my own. And then I'd follow up with you and ask questions from what I read and what I researched. And to me, that's working together and helping the people learn the basis and where it all starts and how to go.
Yeah. I mean, I've got people asking serious questions about David Straight's process or Anna's process. I said, it's useless. Anna's is useless because why? They record their process on their private servers. It has no power there. It holds no weight there. This country was given to us by our Creator. It is a symbiotic relationship. If we learn the rules to this system, we will be able to do our part to make the country better. But instead, the people don't know how the game is played, but they're pointing a finger at the government saying it's their fault. No, it's both. It's both. The government, it says in the Bible that God instituted the government to punish the wicked. Well, government is nothing but a reflection of the people. The more wicked the nation, the more wicked the government will be. You know? And we have to look in the mirror and say, wait a minute here. Do we care about our rights? Do we care what we think? I didn't. When I was 18, shoot, I cared about chasing women. So I've only got me to blame for the stuff I went through. I mean, the government's got to take care of its debts. They need us to play the part. Now I look back on it and say, hey, they're going to use your credit by your choice or by force. It's your option. Well, I would rather them use it by my choice and learn the rules to the game so it's not by force, so the debt can get settled.
Greetings, all. I wanted to circle back around to the name change if we could. And I agree. I
Okay.
don't see why that's necessary either. I was struggling with that. Like, if I can take control of the name or, be the authorized representative or agent for it, why not? But how else would you let that be known? Would you do something like an affidavit of beneficial ownership or, do it in a
No, no,
POA?
no, no, no. Right now, I'm of the opinion, based on what I've seen, and I did a 4-hour class on this a week and a half ago, and I actually took that class and posted it on Rumble. And I show the foundation of how everything was created. I did that class. Dee wasn't even in the class. Dee didn't know I was going to do it. She went and talked to a neonatal nurse that took over the head of that department and confirmed everything I was saying in the class. When your mother, before you were born, there was contracts signed with the hospital for care. In the contract, it said there was an assignment given. Basically, an assignment is when you give the property over to another to manage, similar to a trust. Okay. So, and it's a lifetime contract that can only be withdrawn in writing according to the contract we discovered in Tennessee. So that means the mother abandoned the infant at the contract. The birth record was the result of that contract. Okay. She comes in and fills the birth record out as the custodian, not the mother, not the parent, not her offspring. Okay. Now, according to the other codes I've discovered, and I've got the document from the CDC that states this in all 50 states, there are two products of conception. You've got the placenta and you got the baby. On the footprint document, the baby, the mother signed that she received her baby. We just received my daughter's documents. It says almost word for word what's on my document from 73. That the mother identified the baby based on the band and the number, and the mother received the baby and took the baby home. But the top half of the document doesn't say baby, it says infant. The hospital's recording the infant or the placenta. The mother and father don't record their property. They don't record the baby. The mother and father are supposed to record their baby to show their lineage and their inheritance. Guess what? We are a bunch of people with no names that's never been recorded. We are representing the infant estate that the state owns because it was abandoned. Which makes me think of what it says in Revelations 3:9, I think, that God said he will give you a new name that no one knows. That's that private name. So you have no firsthand knowledge to what your name is. Yes, you were born, but not a single one of us can remember the events. But you have the right, when you're ready, to declare who you are. I was talking to a lady earlier, and I think of my oldest daughter. We've always heard her say, I don't know who I am. A lot of women say that. Say, I don't know who I am. Men, we don't know who we are sometimes either. We just don't think about it. But part of this process is figuring out, who are you? Where did you come from? What is your lineage? I've traced my lineage back to King Duncan. Well, I didn't. I thank my wife for her help, but my grandmother did a lot of the work. And we've traced our lineage back to King Duncan the First of Scotland. Felicia, the W4 lady, she's traced her lineage back to Bishop somebody from Ireland. Well, guess what? That's part of figuring out who you are and your inheritance. Because God makes the heir, not man. Once you start figuring out who you are in relation to that name, things start changing. Things start becoming clear. And the government cannot tell you any different, because why? The First Amendment is first for a reason.
I appreciate that answer. I did understand what happens at the hospital. The next level that you're taking it to in terms of
That's why
um,
that's why
never
I'm
national.
doing this class Tuesday, because I've got a template for everybody to show them what it is, what it means, why it's done, and everything
Yeah,
else.
yeah, yeah. That's amazing. I think you're the first person I think that I've heard take it to this level. Because a lot of people are changing their names and identifying themselves later in life, but not necessarily going all the way back to the birth, which is
Yeah.
critical.
Well, God makes the heir. Look at who named the child in the Bible. Now, there might be people on here that don't believe in the Bible, but that's fine. But don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Please don't do that. A lot of times we're guilty of throwing the baby out with the bathwater. Oh, it's a religious book. Really? It's also a book of principles. And this is how our government operates, is on the principles in that book. And look who named the children back in the day. Most time it was the father. Sometimes it was the mother. Well, guess who's not involved in the process really today? The father. Go look at any birth certificate. I told this lady today, I said, now let's just hypothetically say not a single one of you listening to this call right now has ever seen a birth certificate in the United States, does not understand what they put on it. Okay? And you saw a birth certificate for the first time and you said, wait a minute, mother's maiden name and father's name, they're not married? Wait a minute. That means that's an illegitimate bastard child. Now, Dee the other day said what? How do you fix it? You
You have to
produce a
bring up,
marriage
yep.
license to show you're not illegitimate.
You have to amend the birth certificate with a marriage certificate certified, sent to them so they can correct their records and take you out of being a ward of the state.
That's right.
That's actually, if you research your state laws, you'll be able to find the law that shows that, because that's how I did it here in Georgia.
I don't believe you have to have the marriage license. Um, let's see here. And here's why. Now, D, I'm going to send you something.
Okay.
And I'm going to direct you on what to read once you get it. Because this made it hit home for me when I found this on the marriage license. Okay? Share. I'm gonna share it with it in the group for everyone, but D, I want you to open this document and go to page 10. And I want you to read the line that starts off with William Goodall writing as an abolitionist, and then read the paragraph under that, and that's it. I know where that's at, and this is dealing with the best interest of the child doctrine.
Okay. It says a slave cannot even contract matrimony, the association which takes place among slaves and is called marriage, being properly designated by the word contubernium, a relation which has no sanctity and which no civil rights are attached. Okay.
Now, guess what? A license in law is a permission to do something that's otherwise illegal. When did it become illegal to travel, illegal to own a business, illegal to get married, and illegal to own a gun? See, when it said a slave could not contract matrimony, you should be, if you want your marriage to be in the private, you sit down with your spouse and do a contract. Me and my wife, we did get married with a marriage license. My dad told us how he did it. He did a contract of matrimony. But my wife was new to this stuff, and I was kind of too. And I was kind of like saying, you know what, we'll be all right. You know what I'm saying? Because that was a long time ago. That was before the legal stuff. But
the way I'm reading it, though, the way I'm reading it, though,
the words haven't changed.
Well, yeah, but the way I'm reading it, that would mean if we haven't corrected our disabilities of the minor, our name, then that contract is null and void. It's just a contract for the funds with the state for their part.
That's right. I've got 3 court cases I can show you where the courts admit that the marriage license is a contract between the 2 spouses and the state. The state holds the superior party of interest. And the state says the reason why they do it is to protect the bonds of holy matrimony from the heathens.
Yeah, well, I already knew there was a contract with the third party because I've read those laws. I've researched enough to see that. But I would think like the church marriages would be valid. But then again, if you haven't got the
license, because why? The pastors are 501c3 state-run charitable trusts.
True. Yep. Okay.
So guess
what? I
see
where you're going.
Do your marriage contract. If your child was born before you got the marriage license, does that mean you wasn't married? No. Go back to Isaac and Rebekah in the Bible. Isaac saw Rebekah from afar and chose to love her from that moment on. When did he become her husband? When did she become his wife? Was there this big ceremony where there was a license? No. When they went in the tent and consummated the relationship before God, that was his wife. See, we have forgotten what marriage truly is. No offense, the feminist movement's part of that problem. They've degraded sex so much that they have they've destroyed the bonds of marriage. Okay? So go back, do your marriage contract, backdate it to when you got married in the eyes of God, and produce that with your birth record to show that you were married in the eyes of God. The First Amendment still stands. They cannot violate your First Amendment beliefs. Now, I had two people step up. What was that?
I was just going to say feminism isn't the only thing that's ruined what marriage was
I
supposed to
didn't
be.
say feminism was the only thing. A lot of men today, I said it yesterday on one of the things. I said a lot of men today are not men. I'll tell some of these men, put your mangina away and start acting like men.
I want to ask a question. Will that contract be like your wedding vows that you write to each other?
Yeah, well, it's deeper than just that. You can take the contract and write whatever you want in it. I mean, look, for example, who's gonna take care of the house? Who's gonna take care of the kids? What's the husband's role? What's the wife's role? You know, we're supposed to come together and figure this stuff out together, but a lot of times we're doing it separate. I mean, not physically
Yeah.
separate, but emotionally separate. We don't understand each other's place in this and say, hey, how are we going to do this? We're a team. Each of us have to play a part. Well, you figure that out in your contract too. What's going to happen if my husband dies? How is things going to be handled accordingly? That's where you get into the will and into the trust. But see, people don't think about this stuff. Trust me, I didn't in my first marriage. But do I think about this stuff with my present wife? Absolutely. Every day. Trust me, it gets on her nerves sometimes. Ain't that right, honey?
Only when I feel forgotten, dear.
But no, if you get that contract written up, go get it notarized and say, hey, yeah, we were married back then. They have to accept your contract and your affidavit because you were married before God. You got an example right there in the Bible to prove you were married.
Okay, I got a question on that then. But going
What?
back to the birth record, if well, it's not if, it is the way it is on how it's the dead entity. And if you've
Yeah.
been living under that, if that part hasn't been corrected, then it would still, the contract you wouldn't be valid because it's under
No,
the dead entity.
no. That's why you do your private birth record
Yes,
because
I've got that
both
done.
products have to be recorded, right?
Right, yep.
Okay, the private marriage contract is before the two spouses and God. Guess what? So is the private birth record. That's why the Secretary of State will accept a Bible entry.
Right,
Now,
because I have to
the
get my
county
Bible
won't.
entry authenticated, so
Yeah,
yeah.
the county won't accept it. So you got to put the right information down on the paper the right way with your declaration. So your given name is, say, John Henry. Your family name is Doe. And your lineage is from, for me, King Duncan the First of Scotland. That is my inheritance because why? God makes the heir, not man. That is a maxim in law. Now, are they going to be able? Now, can they deny your inheritance at that point? No, they can't.
So even though you're creating your own private record, your own birth record, what about the fact that, well, obviously the BC is still a negotiable instrument, a financial instrument, yeah?
Correct. Yep.
So the have you heard of doing an estoppel by deed?
I've heard of people doing it, but I don't agree with some of that stuff because I don't think they're doing things right. They're jumping out of order. Is an estoppel by deed possible? Yeah, but you haven't even established all the records you need yet.
Well, no, yeah, I'm just exploring this concept. And that's, essentially taking control of the document. That's
Well,
all that is.
I'll tell you what I'm looking into, and I'm just mentioning bits and pieces because right now I'm on the verge. If everything goes smooth, I'll get the name trademarked. Well, in the trademark, uh, when the lady that was assigned to it at the trademark office, she said, you need to correct a few things, and it was almost like a wink, wink, nod, nod. In other words, she says, here's my recommendations. I said, I like her recommendations. So she said I had to correct to where it lays out the citizenship or nationality. And I don't remember word for word what I put. I put something along the lines. I put my given name, family name, a national of the state of North Carolina, according to 8 USC 1101 A21. And I am the absolute trustee of the all caps name, trust, right? Now, the reason I put that there is because just the other day, somebody brought to my attention, and me and Eon has been talking about this for a couple months. He's been saying it for a couple months that you need to go into the court and be the trustee. I didn't understand at that time why, but I do now. Okay. Now, the other thing I did on that application is up at the top where it says DBA, AKA, TA, formerly known as, and I put the all caps name, I put DBA. So if they agree with my contract and they give me the trademark, that file is getting printed off. Then I'm going to the probate court and declare that I'm the absolute trustee over the trust. Because why? Freaking United States agreed with me.
Okay, I like it. You're knocking out quite a few steps all in one motion there. Yeah.
Now, but right now the other thing I got to do is I got the template on my phone, well, my iPad. I got to finish that template up and get my mother to sign it. Then I got to go get it signed and notarized and get it sent off, because when you do the templates, you also got to take it to a doctor. You might have to talk to a bunch of doctors, but find a doctor to give you a physical and a certificate of life and competency. That goes with that birth certificate. Because why? The infant estate is deceased. Okay? The placenta died, but guess what never happened? There's never been a ceremony for the death of the placenta, and it documented with the state. You remember back in history what happened to the placenta? Some people, some cultures left it attached to the baby, and then when it fell off, they went and buried it in a plot of land and had a ceremony because it was considered part of the baby.
Yeah, that's how my husband's family did up until his uh, great grandmother passed away, and then after that, people kind of stopped doing it. It's same with the things about the family dinners; it just all stopped.
The reason why it stopped because they had to get us away from those traditions, or they wouldn't get away with what they're getting away with.
You take it to probate. Do they How do they put net notification on there to keep it from other people from using it, other corporations, businesses, etc.?
Well, if you're the absolute trustee, the trustee is the one that holds legal title from there on out until the trustee dies. That's where you got to know trust law. That's why I direct people and say, the way I teach people is I teach people to go read the stuff I read. I go say, hey, go to archive.org, look up law of agency. You can get free PDFs from written by attorneys back in the day that will teach you the principles of the law of agency. That's going to be important because why? The next step is you're going to go do the same website and do treatise on trusts, because agency is going to fall into learning how to do the trust, because the trustee is the agent for the trust. So you learn those principles,
Yeah.
so you know how to operate and manage it. So when the government turns that over to you, if you get to that point, they're not going to turn it over to you unless you know how to handle your own affairs.
Unity.
And you're going to sign some freaking really heavy non-disclosures that if you violate them, like one lady did, they found her in a freezer.
Yeah, I have those 2 documents actually. I'll get to reading. Thank you.
Now, there was a gentleman that started to speak. So is there a question?
Unity, can you hear me, Pastor?
Yes.
Excellent, excellent.
How
I
you
was just
doing, minister?
listening. I'm great. How about yourself?
Not too bad.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. I was listening. You know, a lot of my friends, just like Myron Rice and different other people,
Hey,
when
Myron
when
Rice.
we
Myron
yes,
Rice is the one that brought the placenta to me because I did my 2-hour presentation about 4.5 months ago. And I said, Myron, do me a favor. Will you critique it? He said, yeah, I'd be glad to. He come back to me and said, at the 51-minute mark, you missed something. I said, what'd I miss? He said, the placenta, and I poo-pooed it. And I said, come on, Myron. People have been telling me that for years. And I said, nobody's shown me evidence. Now I got the
yeah,
evidence. So, yeah, I know Myron and Eon.
yes, yes, yes. A lot of things that how people expatriate, right?
Yeah, but how
If
can
you
you
listen,
expatriate from something you never patriated into?
well, when they have a code, I put it into a chat, is about you're a minor until you take control of the securities in your minor account.
Correct.
So, like you were saying concerning, uh, I call it Operation Separation, which
Yeah,
basically you're creating entities so the entities can work on your behalf based on you granting the authority for the entities to work on behalf of the DBA, fictitious business name, or whatever people want to call it.
yeah.
What I have had success in, which we've been attacked as well, because I've been approached about 9 times to sign a non-disclosure, and I
By the
refused to
government?
sign a non-disclosure. Yes, by the man
Yeah,
in
but
black.
don't you feel like
So,
you're making a deal with the devil?
oh my God. Well, as you get higher into this stuff, they tell you the devil is the god of earth and worship him. That's what they tell you. And they want you to honor that. But I knew the devil was the god of earth because the Bible, which is a trust document or an estate
Tells you it
document, that
is.
basically, yes, it does. And so what we have done, you know, is just separate, like, for my birth records, I trace my family all the way to King Henry, and I also trace my family back to King David, and
Nice.
Solomon. You see, and
Yeah.
also to the areas of this land, which is Turtle Island.
Yes.
And what I've seen is that you really have to understand entities, and then you have to understand the consumer laws to be able to fathom why everything is free, because it tells you in certain consumer laws that everything, when a consumer asks for his credit back, you're supposed to refund it. I believe it's 15 USC 1666D. I think. I don't get me wrong, but it's in the 166. But
Yeah.
when you're dealing with an asset, which is the promissory note, and the asset is being deposited, you create a new money, which is a liability. So when they collect their new money, when they collect the asset and deposit it, which is the third party intervener, they're actually getting paid through the treasury through your account. So what we done is that we created the trusts to deal with the bills and to be able to claim the funds and to discharge, because once the funds was exchanged, that means I'm discharged from my obligations. But I can't get discharged from my obligations because you're keeping it with the state, within the state jurisdiction, and you have to be able to notify them with certain forms once you get to that level, right? Which
Yep.
is, people talk about the 1099A, 1099B, 1099C, but you have to understand through the publications, why am I filing these documents? Why? And what I've learned, and that's why I'm here listening and, you know, working on getting quicker through the matrix, because I've had debt discharge, I've gotten recoupment from tax returns, and I've been doing it for now, what, 13 years. And
Hey.
it's crazy. It's crazy, and it's like a really many are called, few are chosen.
Yeah.
And I like a lot of things that you're saying, because if there is no foundation, that means you're going to stick into quicksand.
Double
So it's
mindedness.
important that, yes, yes, and it's important to have that foundation for success, and have a team, which I call administration, because you need that to be able to have that type of support.
Well, I don't think debt discharge is as difficult as
And
people have
I
made it.
don't recommend anyone trying to. Yeah, yeah, I agree with you. It's just a formula. You
Well,
know who's the owner of the Social Security card. You know who's supposed to pay the debt, and you know the trustees.
yeah, the Social Security Administration tells you who the trustees are. See, what I'm looking at is this,
Go ahead,
and
sir.
I had somebody tell me this. They said that when I told them about you being the
The,
resident or registered or statutory agent at the beginning, that's what you are. It's an implied agency, okay? The sole duty of the agent is to send all notices, all processes, and all demands to the principal. Who is the principal? The trustees. The head trustee is the
yes,
Secretary of the Treasury. Now, Myron Rice was the first person I knew that was doing this, and he sent the cover letter and said, "Hey,
yes.
according to the Michigan Code, this is my duty. According to this Michigan Code, as long as I'm doing my duty, I hold no liability." And he said they paid his bills every month.
Yes, they did. They did. We've seen it happen, and our only problem is that we've seen a shift. When Donald Trump left, a lot of us were attacked. When
Yeah.
when they first removed him, and we were targeted. So in the beginning, it's hard to really tell people about these things, because they really don't understand. And if you tell them these things, then you become liable for what they're doing. So it's just important that, I commend you to really get that foundation in for our people, because, there's only a straight and narrow path that you can go. And
That's
we
yep.
have to all work together to get there, you know? And, I've seen recoupment. I've seen, big credits that was exchanged for them depositing my securities. But you have to understand those things before you want to step out and make these moves, because they don't like people teaching. They don't like people knowing the truth. And as you can see, a lot of people's on YouTube guessing, and they don't realize that you're on YouTube and you're able to talk because you really don't know what you're talking about. And those that really don't have that many followers are the people that really knows what they're talking about. So, I just commend you, Pastor, and I just wanted to, chime in and say, yes,
Well,
understand
well,
that.
that's why I tell people to read the laws of agency. Learn your role, because the law
Yes.
of agency is your stepping stone. It is your first step in learning how to handle your commercial affairs. That's what it was there
Yes.
for.
Yes.
When you got it at 18, because we never taught our children this stuff, you're using another's property and you're not using it right. Then you get mad at the government when they do what they did, when it's you that is in the wrong.
I
Would you
think
Yes.
say
a
what happened
lot
right
of
there?
the
Yes. Well, you know what?
Do what, D?
I said I think a lot of the confusion comes in is when we start talking about, well, the trustees are with the Social Security, so, or send it to the Treasury, but then claim also that you're absolute trustee. And then when they go to research trust law and they find out the trustee has the liability, then it causes
If,
confusion on what they're doing.
yeah, if that's why you have to study second the laws of trust. Because why? First, the
Yes.
agent. Agency, it will tie into the trust. Okay. Then when you get to the trustee laws, you're going to learn what you learn in agency is going to start to make sense as the trustee. So when you start following the rules of the trust, you're not liable. There's a hold
Held
harmless
harmless.
indenture in place.
Oh yeah, I agree. I think, but
Yes.
that's the problem is they're not reading this and they're just going off of conversations or chats instead of going and doing the due diligence. And then that causes them to be confused. And it's just
That's
because they're
why
not doing the due diligence.
that's right. That's why, D, when people ask me, can you do some papers for me or do a template? I say, yeah, I can, but I won't. Why not?
Yep.
You'll
Because I
never
can
hear me
write
ask
you a yeah.
that.
The reason why I won't is this: I can write you a template that might fix your problem, but when you go to court and you can't defend it, I've set you up for failure.
That's a problem.
That is
Yes.
exactly why I
Yes.
would never do a template. Nope. You got to know what you're doing and what you're
Mm-mm.
saying so you know what to stand on.
Well, this is the law of equity. So you got to put your blood into it. So most of the time, you need to write out your documents. When you write out your documents, the whole objective is that they're saying you're dead. So you want to show them that you are alive at all costs. And you need to understand how to deal with entities. What's a DBA? What's an LLC? What's a corporation? What's a trust? What's its functions? What's a statutory trust? What's a foreign trust? What can be a foreign trust? Anything that they can't go into. So once you understand how to operate in these entities, then it becomes easier to deal in commerce. But if you don't understand these things and you don't understand the separation from the business, because if I'm working for a business and it's a LLC and I'm just one of the managing members, then I'm not taking no liability. And the only thing you can go for is what's inside the LLC. But if the LLC is owned by a foreign trust, then you have a problem here. You got to get them into court. So it's just a lot of
Yeah, now some of y'all people been hearing me say about the secured party creditor process. There are parts of it that I say today is wrong. And what have I said about setting up a trust? You get a trust, you appoint the LLC as the trustee, register the LLC in New Mexico, set your DBA up as doing business as the LLC doing
Yes.
business as the trustee for the trust. He just said the same
Yes.
thing.
Yes. And then you have to understand how credit is being moved. If you don't understand how to establish business credit because you didn't understand how to establish your own credit, you lost already. So you can't get to the promised land if you doesn't study yourself approved. Because the first thing you need to study is that Bible. Because the Bible is the foundation and it's actually public law. And it is the law of the land. But if you don't know how to use the state document, you will be lost. Guarantee you.
Go read Proverbs. It talks about doing business and how to do things in Proverbs.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. And if you go read in certain parts of the New Testament, it tells you that they're going to take you to the magistrate. The magistrate is going to judge you, and you're going to have to pay him. So
Yeah.
it's all there.
Yep. I mean, when
But thank you for
Jesus
letting me
was
speak,
asked about
Pastor.
taxes, oh, no problem. Anytime. You are welcome to come on here. Um,
Thank you,
when
sir.
when Jesus was asked about taxes, he said, "Go to the fish, get the coin, bring it to me." Whose inscription is on it? Caesar's. Okay, he said, "Render unto Caesar that which is Caesar's, render unto God that which is God's." What do we call that in the legal community? Public and private. What's in the public is Caesar's. What's in the private is God's. You're Everybody's too busy being the public facade instead of setting up a public facade so they are reserved for God in the private. And the government knew this. That's why they set it up.
Yeah. That's why I've mentioned a few times when we've talked about trust is I always call it like an umbrella because I have my umbrella, the foreign trust, and then everything is underneath that. And I've actually got another foreign trust under my foreign trust before my LLC and my DBA. So,
Yeah, most of the people out there teaching secured party creditor process today, I will say that the majority of them have it wrong. They're not doing their 9/8 numbers right. You have to do things a certain way. That's why I mentioned New Mexico. You can get you can create your LLC, appoint that LLC as the trustee for the trust. The LLC gets a registered agent. In New Mexico, you can get one as cheap as $35 a year to handle your registered agent service. That handles all your legal mail and forwards it to you. New Mexico, the reason why I say New Mexico is their laws, they will not disclose who the owner and members of the LLC are, not without a subpoena. Okay? Now, to get your 9/8 number, go find on the travel.gov website, find you a non-Hague country, and then see which one of those countries offer mailing services and get you a mailing service and get the address to where they will receive your mail. And then you use that address to get your 9/8 number and you're all set. A lot of people are saying, "Oh, I just pick an address out of the blue," and I tell them and I get a 9/8 number all day long. Guess what's going to happen? One day, they're going to go look and see if that's a true address you're using, and your trust is going to fall apart.
Yep.
yep.
You've got to play by certain rules. And the government publishes all the rules, they tell you everything. All you got to do is read. Let me tell you how much reading I do, minister. You know what a Westlaw account is, don't you?
Yes, sir.
My Thomson Reuters representative told me one day, he said, for a one-person account, he calls me an attorney. I think it's funny. They just presume I am. They said, you spend more time reading in Westlaw than most big law firms. I just laughed. I said, well, I love to read because they publish all the rules.
Yes, they do. But see, that's the tools. See, what people don't understand, you're just not frivolously creating things. You have to create things for your administration. So if you are just operating and just trying to, like I tell people in a minute, you say you want a tax ID number. Are you ready to do banking? No. So why do you think that you can just create a 98 number or anything like that, and you don't even have paperwork behind it to show the entity that it's attached to? It's just something in thin air. I said you're going to get audited, and when you get audited, you're going to have some problems because you're not going to be able to show cause. So it's important that you really study yourself approved, especially in these waters, because these waters are no joke. Because mind you, that's why we're at the numbers of 3% as far as who knows what's going on. The rest of the world is actually dumbed down. So you really have to understand how to use these entities. And like the pastor said, you're going to read. You're going to have to read, and you're going to have to know what goals are you trying to get to, and you have to write those things out. And then you have to understand how commerce and how assets, which are promissory notes, bonds, indentures, whatever you want to call them, they are used to be able to do an exchange. So if you don't know how to exchange and you don't know how to sell the debt, because these are called open-ended credit cards. The Social Security card is a credit card. That's the one with the unlimited credit. But if you don't understand that and you don't understand how the transactions are being done, then how the heck are you going to be a banker? It won't work. So now you need to be able to read and understand the laws so that you can comprehend why you're doing what you're doing.
Very well said.
We lost Pastor. He blacked out on us.
He just dropped the mic on that last statement. That's all.
One of the things I think more people should start doing, and I'm trying to get it together, and where I'm at, I'm in Georgia, is to get so like some people learn better if they actually see and work in groups. So that's what I'm working on where I'm at, is that we have more groups that are together that can actually work together to get through these things and learn from each other.
Yeah, you guys pull that Georgia group together real quick.
We're working on it. We've got I think it was Sarah that's got the meeting Sunday, and then after that we'll have it finalized.
Yes, and it's great to create groups. It's just making sure that everybody's on the same page, especially understanding the foundation. Like when you're dealing with the money situation or the credit or the securities that's being deposited into these banks, you want to understand Article 1, Section 10 of the Constitution. So once you understand Article 1, Section 10 of the Constitution, then you understand that, Article 1, Section 8 clause 10, because what they're doing is in Article 1, Section 10, they're acting as pirates with a letter of marque of appraisal. So as a pirate, they actually can be tried as a pirate, and it's a felony. So it's your job to be able to prove that these things are happening. And then once you know these things are happening and you have studied yourself approved, it's important that, like the pastor was saying, is that you separate yourself, okay? And when you separate yourself, you have your entities that are connected to be able to operate in commerce and interface with different entities and exchange your credit. Because when you're dealing from your estate, you're dealing from a point of giving out gifts, because a payment, you can never pay anyone. You can never pay anyone. Everything is deferred. When you read the consumer laws, it says that the creditor extends credit and it's on a deferred basis. So all these things are deferred. So you have to understand what those things mean. And when the pastor was talking about God and the creator, when you're notarizing documents, you're able to say, I affirm before my creator that everything is true and correct, right? And that's a notary. You can notarize that I signed this document in front of my creator, and I affirm that everything in here is true and correct. That's a notary. So once you understand the power of the book and be able to use it, you will see that all the Constitution and the Bill of Rights are all inspired by the Creator. The Creator is in everything. That's why when you go to these courts, they have the Bible there, because they're saying we're the heathen and we're actually dead and we're in hell. So you have to, I ask people, are you a 40-year person walking around in a circle in the wilderness? Or are you a 3-day person? Are these a 3-day living soul? Because it's all about the living. And the question is, did I give you the authority to administrate my affairs? And if I did not give you authority to administrate my affairs, you must cease and desist immediately. Why? Because if I'm the agent for the all caps name, who gave you authority? I have a trust. I have things that are operating on my behalf. My trustee would normally ask them these questions. Or if I'm in that capacity that day, then that's what I would do. But remember, you switch in different capacities. But if you don't understand trust law, if you don't read like the pastor is saying and understand the DBA from the LLC, from the corporation, from the trust, and how they interact and why people create these entities. And they create them because the LLC gives you a pass-through taxation. And when pass-through taxation means is that if the trust owns the LLC, then the trust can file its taxes through the LLC. So all these things.
Not only that,
Yes,
but
go
if
ahead.
you got all your property in trust, it can lease the property to the LLC.
Yes,
and the
it
LLC
can.
has
Yes, it
a
can.
business write-off.
Yes, and you can use that payments that the LLC is paying back the trust. The trust can report it to Dun& Bradstreet, and you can do a UCC, and then after the LLC pays the bill, you do a cancellation. Now you got instant credit.
Now, yeah, that was funny. I spoke Eon up. He called.
Now, minister, have you checked into like the they have in Georgia? It's called the S Corp, Soul Corp, Corporation Soul.
Yeah. Well, when you're okay, I have a corporate soul. Okay, I also have a ministry, and I also work with different tribal governments. And it depends on how you're expanding. You get what I'm saying? And if most people are not there to expand that far, the best thing is to take baby steps, right? Like the pastor was saying, really get a comprehension of what you're doing. Because if you just create a corporate soul and you don't know how to operate in the corporate soul because you don't know how to operate in the LLC or how to use the DBA or how to use the trust, how to separate the assets. If this trust is out in the open, is it just administrative trust? And where is your trust that's in the back, which is the master trust? and understanding how to take responsibility of the securities in your minor account, because it's
Yeah.
all about settling the debt. If you're not settling the debt and getting discharged from your obligations, that's where the problem lays. So
That's
once
why
you
you're
understand,
being treated as an enemy under the Trading with the Enemy Act, because you're creating all this debt. The Trading with the Enemy Act is a banking act. You're creating all this debt, but you're not doing what you need to do so the United States can balance its books.
yes,
Right.
So that's one of the things me and Eon's been talking about lately is if you go back and read, how familiar are you, Minister, with Proclamation 2039?
no, I'm not familiar with that one.
You need to go read it real closely. The third or fourth paragraph from the bottom, you're going to see an A, B, and a C. If you read section C, then you go read the congressional record of March 9th, 1933, where it talks about the new money is issued to the banks. Then you go read
Yes, yes,
412, 12 USC 412. Guess what? You're a bank.
yes, yes. And you have to operate like a bank. But see, that's how we were able to expatriate, was once we start taking responsibility for the securities and dealing with the assets that was already given out based upon the purchase money loan, and understanding the finance charge where it was exchanged for the purchase money loan. And
Yeah.
if they receive these assets and the liability, that means that I'm discharged from my obligation. So it's my job to make sure that I'm not asleep in the contract and let them know that no, you would be able to do this if I was dead, but I'm alive and I understand that you already got paid. And if you already got paid, where's my receipt? And if you can't give me my receipt, then you agree
Exactly.
that I'm discharged from my obligations. But how do I create my own receipt? The 1099A, because I'm letting them know this is an acquisition. I'm not abandoning. And then I'm going to do a C because I'm discharged from all of my obligations. But if I don't have an account set up with my trust to be able to do banking, to receive and discharge things, that's where the problem comes in. Because if you want your trustee to operate, especially from a foreign jurisdiction, you must have that bank account open. And then you also have to deal with the passport, because once you give out the social security number, you're creating a consumer credit transaction. So it's no such thing as a loan, because if you put down funds, that means this is a consumer credit transaction. So every consumer credit transaction has an asset, which is that promissory note. And if you deposit my promissory note and it was exchanged for a purchase loan, and that purchase loan created cash, and you got the finance charge, that means you were paid.
And guess what?
So if you
Yep.
already got,
Exactly.
Now, Minister, if you read the Trust Indenture Act of 1939 and go through their definitions, an indenture is the mortgage contract.
yes,
And guess
yes, it
what?
is.
And guess what? Also, the obligor has to produce the trustee. And guess who
Yes,
never
they do.
steps foot in the court case? Guess who
The
never steps
trustee.
foot in the court? The trustee.
No, they don't, because
That's
the
why I'm
attorney.
saying absolute trustee. But if you think
Yes,
of it from the perspective of a bankruptcy court, on a bankruptcy court, the trustees are there because you hired an attorney. That attorney
to attorney.
assumes the role of trustee, and then
Yes.
there's another trustee called the U.S. attorney handling the other side, and the obligor produced the trustee in a bankruptcy case. But the average person isn't producing the trustee in an average everyday case.
No, they're not. They're actually going up there and taking the liability, because one thing about a bankruptcy case, everything is done under penalty of perjury. So most people don't realize that you can take those bankruptcy documents and go get all the stuff that said that they said that they were the creditor. They're a lie. They're not the creditor, because the United States the creditor and the debtor. And you're just the vessel, which is that all caps name that was given unto us, because as above, so is below. That means that everything was given to man and woman. So based upon that, that means that I'm free to go because everything that we're getting charged for is natural resources. And
I got a
natural
buddy of mine
resources,
that recently went through bankruptcy, and he's got got a $90,000 judgment or something like that. He's paying like 1,700 a month on it, right? I said,
mm,
1099 the court,
come on.
send it to the Treasury. He said,
I
but
think
won't
I'm
that
one
Yep.
of
affect
the
my creditor? I said, no, don't you realize? And he's learning this stuff. I said, have you forgotten what you've been learning? The creditors already got paid. That's why you're sending your payment to the court. They securitized the case, created a security. You're paying the security. They've already been paid by the trust. You just ain't
Yes.
reporting it to the freaking treasury.
Yeah, I
Yes.
think I'm one of the few people that have gone into the bankruptcy court and came out and the judge said all things discharged already paid. And he commended me afterwards for everything I submitted, showing that they had already been paid.
And then now
Actually,
1099 them.
actually, I know a lady that she did use the Social Security account in her bankruptcy, and it pissed everyone off.
Mm.
Her bankruptcy attorney left the case.
Well, I
They
did it all
called
on my own. I did not hire an
yeah,
attorney. I did all the paperwork on my own,
yeah.
and I got everything taken care of. Nothing. Y'all aren't
Well,
getting
what?
anything. They were upset, but the judge commended me.
Yeah.
Yes.
See now, and look, y'all hear a lot of people on these guru channels. I can help you discharge your debt. Pay me $300. I can help you do this. Pay me $200. And I'm like, stop going to these people.
Yeah. It's a
These
scam.
people, it's they know enough to be dangerous. And honestly, yeah, they might get some successes, but are they teaching you the why that it works so you can stand on your own? No, they keep you
No.
coming back for more.
Yes. Yes.
See,
No
me,
foundation.
I'm a bad, I'm a bad. What do I tell people? I said, I'm a bad business owner. My website's getting ready to launch. It's going to be a membership-based website like a PMA because, as you know, Minister, NAACP versus Button, an unlicensed attorney can assist the members of its organization, and it's protected by the First Amendment under freedom of association, right?
Yes.
So I'm developed, and I've talked to attorneys about it, and they said, "You mean I can leave the bar?" Yeah. I said, "Yeah, you can. Can I join your organization?" Yes, you can. I got attorneys already wanting to join when I started, and it's getting ready to launch. And
Excellent.
I'm sitting there. I'm a terrible businessman. Why? I'm trying to teach people how to stand on their own 2 feet. Because why? I can only reach certain people. If they learn what I've learned and learn what you've learned, they might reach 2,000 more people. If we get
Yes.
enough people to learn how this system works, it'll change the direction of this country.
Oh,
I want to
yes.
put
Yes.
myself out of business. I want to get to the point where 5, 10 years from now, nobody needs me for this and I can retire.
Oh, well, we're not free until we all are free.
That's right.
And, I thought, hey, I'm going to stay over here. Nothing will happen. But, if you don't want to play by their rules, they attack you. And if
Yeah.
you don't have a solid foundation to know how to defend yourself, that's where the problem happens. So it's important that everybody, like you said, they have to know. They got to get a solid foundation. But we have to continue these conversations, and people have to really take it serious because everyone is dead. And if you haven't came alive and rose again in 3 days, that means something's wrong. So we have to deal with the mental health issues. We have to deal with a lot of things that's going on with our people because a lot of the people are traumatized. So
Yeah.
we have to get through the trauma. So it has to be one place where everyone can go to, versus being scattered with all this different information. And if you haven't really lived it, that's the problem, because I haven't had a driver's license since 2010. So once I left, I never looked back. But what happens is that if you don't have people that know what you know, when you get to a certain level, it becomes lonely. So it's like, you want everyone to get to that promised land, but like I said, many are called and few are chosen. And so it's important that you study yourself approved, because if you don't do that, that's where the problem happens, because you can't get cocky. You got to be assertive, and you got to be kind, but you got to be harmless as a dove, but wise as a serpent. Because in this game, they respect you if you know what you're talking about. And if you know too much and you're trying to help people, you may get attacked. But you have to realize that it's not something that you don't understand. It's that something that you are overstanding now. And now you need to get together with others just like you, because, the new family is people who didn't come through the same birth canal, because everybody has been shunned out of their families. The whole foundation has been broken. It's our job now to build that foundation back, but also help people support each other. And people has to learn how not to take advantage and find out what is true love and what does a family really look like versus what they was raised in or what they were traumatized in. So it's so many different levels, but it's important to know these things so that you don't get caught up in this gateway of hell, because it's
Well, that's why, with what you're saying, it's why I believe what I believe. In Revelation 18, it says, come out of her, my people, so you don't take part in her plagues. Well, so
yes,
I believe if you really study the book of Revelations, yes, there's going to be a lot of Christians that are beheaded for their faith, but I think most of those are going to be still in the system. In other words, we're going to behead you because you're our property. They didn't know any better. But I do believe there's also going to be those that are not going to be beheaded. There's going to be pockets of liberty under the protection of God. Because why? It makes no sense if there are tribulation saints that will lead people to Christ if the rapture happens before the tribulation. It makes no sense if all the Christians are beheaded and you can't lead people to Christ. But during the tribulation, there's going to be people that are led to Christ. You can't prove me wrong on that based on what it says. They're already announcing the mark of the beast, this crypto-based blockchain system. They're already announcing digital birth certificates. Now, if you know how blockchain works, and by the way, you're familiar with the UCC. Do you know they're modernizing it?
yes, they
I can
are.
send you
Yes,
the document. They're adding an
yes,
Article 12 for digital assets. And
yes.
he who controls that asset is the owner. But what's going
Yeah,
to
I've seen
happen when
that.
the state controls the birth certificates on the blockchain where you can't get access to them?
They're starting to
And
close it all down like that. I mean, I was telling people the other day in another chat, in my area, all the health departments have closed. You only go through one office.
Look, Vital Records in North Carolina. On their website, you can go through VitaCheck. It takes 4 to 5 months to get it. If you do it by mail, it takes 6 months to a year. Okay?
yeah,
Right.
Now, let me tell you this little interesting factoid. They tell you you can do it in person by appointment only, right?
yep,
When you go to their online appointment line and they show you August, when I tried to do it, they show you August and all of September. You cannot go past September, and there's nothing available. When you call the appointment line to try to set up an appointment, the voicemail is full and nobody
yep.
answers. They are The
Yep.
only way you can do it is suck it up, Buttercup. Go in person. Quit believing their lies. Go into the little kiosk,
Right.
pay for your thing, take it to the counter, and they'll print them out for you.
Yep. You know, that's
Yes, they
why I
will.
drove to Texas, because everything's closing down like that. So, nope, I'm driving everywhere.
And you know, the rules have changed too because of what, 3 years ago, I went to the county and asked for a certified copy of what's at the county. They would not give me what was in the book entry. They give me this
Mm.
pretty green piece of paper with the facts of it on there, no measurements, no nothing, just the names. And they signed it, they certified it. And I called them back and I said, wait a minute, that don't look right. I want the book entry, right? Oh, you can't get that. Well, guess what I just got
Yeah.
the other day, because now they're saying, oh, it's being treated the same as the one at Vital Records. Oh, no, y'all are changing the rules because a little bird told me the reason they're changing the rules is they're trying to stop the bleeding. People are getting
Yes.
out.
Yes. They're leaving. They're expatriating. They're giving up this so-called citizenship. And in my state, California, I was lucky to be able to get my confidential information, which is a loan form, and they also give you a paper in the front, a cover letter that says banknote, and they give you the account number. Okay, so I amended all of my birth records, and I also have on there that my mom and my dad is not 14th Amendment citizens, and I signed at the time as the secure party creditor, but I transferred everything to my trust and gave the trust and made the trust a secure party and made the other entities the debtors to the trust. So once I transferred everything from that title, they don't even want me to bring it anywhere because it says on there my nationality here as indigenous and also how it stretches to Europe. So I don't only have estates here in America. I have estates in Europe, and as a son of Henry, it's on my birth certificate. And it's just now everybody knowing that we all are a family. We all are one because we all are mixed up because that surname was given out in 1066. And if you follow the
Well,
Bible,
not only that, minister, there's no such thing as race. It's
yes,
ethnicity. We are just all
yes,
different shades of the same. I had a buddy of mine, Christian brother. He started falling into that crap with being melanated. Now he's dark as freaking night, okay? And I said, brother, don't you realize I'm melanated? No, you're not. You're a white guy. I said, really? Where do you think my freckles come from? He went and looked it up. He went and looked it up, what causes freckles. And I said,
yes,
see,
melanin.
brother, don't fall for the scam. We're all
Yeah,
melanated.
yep. Because mind you, we come from the same hue. Everyone comes from the same hue. And if you don't
Yeah.
come from that hue and you were made from the dust, that means that you're synthetic. And if you're
Well,
synthetic, that means you're not from this land.
well, guess what? The Bible said that God made man from the clay of the earth. We're too
Yes, he
busy
did.
arguing over the shade of dirt. What color is your spirit?
Come on now. Test the spirit by the spirit.
There ain't no spirit. There ain't no color in the spirit.
No, it's not.
God made us a spirit. The body is a temporary housing for our spirit.
That right
Yes,
there
it
is
is.
what
It's going to
got
go
me on
back to
the
the clay.
that temporary housing is what I always use. I'm not here as a resident because I'm not here permanently. I'm in a temporary state of abode until I go back to my creator.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's why I tell people you got to know who you are. God, God didn't make babies. God didn't make children. God made man. He just happened to divide us into two, woman and man.
And we need both of each other to be able to do God's creation all over again. The sun
Yep.
and the moon needs to do an eclipse to be able to
Hmm.
receive whatever from the other side through a portal. So it's all it's see, the more and more we focus on being one mind, one heart, and one spirit, just like they did in Acts, the fourth chapter. You know, when we come on one accord and put everything in one purse, and we start to focus on taking care of everybody versus just ourselves, you know. But I also say many are called, but few are chosen. So the chosen will receive, because what was last will be first, and what was first will be last, and what was in the beginning will be in the end. So if you really want to know what's going to happen, you got to read the book, because the book is actually telling you what's going to happen in the beginning and in the end. So we have to come together, because if we don't, being an individual with an ego ain't gonna help you for long.
No.
It definitely won't. Minister, where are you at? Are you anywhere in the or south? Or are you out in California?
Well, I'm in California, and I get around.
I'm sorry.
Depending on the situation. But yeah, I have people everywhere that we commune with, but I start cutting my circle down very low, because if you know, like the pastor said, if I'm telling you what to do and you're not in my understanding of how to ask the right questions and be the ask king to be able to get things done, then the only thing I'm doing is hurting you. Because yeah, say you got 800,000 in your bank account. What are you going to do with it if you don't know how to deal with your securities? If you don't know how to transfer the assets, how to get rid of the liability and turn liabilities into assets? So it's a whole bunch of understanding that has to be done before you can get to this part. And to tell people certain things, you can hurt them because
Well,
they don't have a foundation.
look how many people. It's rare, but it happens. They'll win the lottery and go buy expensive house and go buy
Yep.
expensive cars, and within 5 years they're filing bankruptcy. Man, you let me win a multi-million-dollar lottery, I'm retiring. I'm going to turn
For
that
good.
money over to the
Uh,
bank and say, I'm going to appoint them as trustees. Here, bankers, y'all the professionals. Y'all take care of this and make me money and give me a monthly allowance. I'm going to retire.
Yep. Yep.
agree.
And anything I spend, I want it back, because it was coming from my trust and it was a gift. And any gift I give, I'm closing it out because I'm not obligated to pay the bill. I just paid it for a moment, and now I got to go back to the corporation to get the funds I invested into their other corporations.
Well, everybody, I am going to have to cut this short now because I'm going to call my wife and tell her good night and spend time with her. I'm parked. And
Well, you have a
we could
wonderful
probably
night.
do this tomorrow.
That would be
Okay,
great. I
thank you.
always
Good
love to
night.
hear you.
Okay, D. Minister, you're welcome anytime to talk. I appreciate it.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate you more.
Have a good
Y'all have a
night.
wonderful night, everybody.
Thank you, Pastor.
Good night.
Good
Good night,
game,
all.
everybody. Good game.